For the handstand hold, I want you to pay attention to two critical things. One is alignment. We're going to line up everything from our wrists, elbows, and shoulders through our torso, hips, knees, and ankles. And two, we're going to create a lot of tension. In other words, nothing's going to be loose or not part of the system. Everything matters in this movement. I also want to point out that handstands require not only a lot of upper body strength in general, but they require a lot of strength relative to your body weight. So I highly recommend getting really good at the basics like push-ups, pull-ups, and rows. Also throwing in some overhead movements with barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells, etc. Now, another thing that will give you an advantage in this movement is losing weight. If you ever have any extra fat to lose, losing that weight is just going to allow you to hold up your body weight a little bit easier. But to begin, let's just stick to keeping everything in line and creating a lot of tension. This movement is so basic, but even the slightest tweaks can really throw it off. There's two ways that you can get up into the handstand hold. One is from a position of standing back. You're going to plant your hands and then kick your feet up. The other one is planting your hands first on the floor, getting them firmly grounded, and then kicking up your feet. If you're unfamiliar with this movement, I highly recommend doing the second one where you have both hands planted on the ground first. And that's how I'm going to demonstrate this. Your hands are going to be about a foot away from the wall. You don't want to be too far away from the wall so that you have to create this big arch with your hips and back to keep the feet against it. And you don't want to be too close to the point where it's just going to push you back down because you don't have enough room for your hips and your back. So we're going to start about a foot, and you can change that depending on what feels comfortable for you. Next, our hands, they're going to be shoulder width apart, about the same distance you'd use for the push-up. We're not trying to go way out here. We're trying to keep everything in line. Remember, we want our wrist, elbow, and shoulder to be in line. Wrist, elbow, and shoulder to all be in line so that when we go up there, we are. If our hands are out wide, then we have a different line coming up from our wrist, a different line coming up from our elbow, and different from our shoulder. In that position, we're not at an advantage physically. So before you do, I highly recommend too, you tuck in your shirt unless you really don't care about what you look like underneath there. So hands are going to be shoulder width apart. I'm going to be about a foot away from the wall. Hands are flat. My fingers are going to be spread out. And my hands are going to be shoulder width apart. From here, my biceps are going to be forward just like we do in our push-up. We're going to begin with 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. You'll probably begin with your dominant foot back. It's going to be my right leg. And from here, I'm going to kick that leg up. We don't want to smack it against the wall. We're going to kick it up and we're going to drive our toes towards the ceiling as we extend the arms and try to straighten out those arms as much as possible. We don't want any bend in the elbows. We're going to point the toes up, squeeze the legs together, and squeeze our glutes. When we squeeze our glutes, we're going to lock our hips and lower back in place so that we're not arching the back or anything crazy. We're going to keep our head nice and neutral. We want to avoid cranking the neck back. I mean, you know the floor is there. The floor's not going to move away from you, so you don't really have to look at it, okay? Keep the arms extended, brace your abs, squeeze your glutes, point the toes, forming a nice straight line. Once you're done, come down 1 foot at a time. Return to the ground softly. When you first start getting going with this movement, you're probably going to smack your feet up against the wall. That's going to come with the territory to getting used to it. Over time, though, you want to learn about being soft and going up there nice and smooth. You may have to tweak how you set up because it's really hard to see what you're doing, even with a mirror. It'd probably be good to set up a camera or to have somebody watch you and kind of critique things. But again, the two things to keep in mind, keep everything in line and don't let anything be loose. Create as much tension as possible. That way you can recruit as many muscles as you have at your disposal. But that's how you do a handstand hold.